Welcome, listeners, again to a different topic of our discussion in the series of discussion on fundamentals of geology. So, the next topic that we need to discuss is obviously weathering and erosion, and we'll be also talking about the different agents of weathering and the processes of weathering and agents of erosion, and then finally we'll start discussing in our consecutive lectures. We'll be discussing individually about the different agents of erosion. So, to start with that, weathering and erosion, these processes are possibly the most important processes on the surface of the earth, because it actually transform the surface of the earth into various landforms, and also uh, it contributes to the formation of, for example, soil. It contributes to the fertility of agriculture lands, and it also contributes to the formation of various sedimentary rocks. So, if I start with the first one, taking weathering as the first topic of discussion, then obviously weathering refers to the process of breaking down and altering rocks and minerals at or near the earth's surface. So, you see that it is strictly a process that is going on the surface of the earth, not beneath the surface of the earth. So, obviously, like we have mentioned earlier, that 75% of the earth's surface area is composed of land surface area. Obviously not the complete surface area. Land surface area is composed of sedimentary rock, again the surface area only, not by a volume. So, definitely this weathering process acts on the sedimentary rock. Also, it definitely acts on igneous and metamorphic rocks, which constitute the rest of the 25% of the Earth's surface area. So, it can occur through obviously physical, chemical, and biological processes. So, broadly, there are three types of weathering. If I look into weathering specifically, they can be categorized under the processes of physical weathering, which is also referred to as mechanical weathering. Then you have chemical weathering, and you can also think of biological weathering. So, just if I look at this simple figure of a stream that is running down a hill slope, forming this V-shaped kind of a valley. We will be talking about these shapes of the valley in our consecutive lectures. So, here I would like to just refer to this stream that is coming down the hill slope like this through this valley, and it is actually through this stream, both your mechanical or your physical weathering as well as your chemical weathering is taking place in this particular example. So, how it is so? Obviously, whenever the water is getting transported from one part of the hill to down the slope, obviously the whatever material it is carrying with it will interact within themselves. Obviously, if for example I can think of small stones or particles, they will hit one another and interact one another, and in doing so, due to this aberration, obviously there will be mechanical disintegration of the particles into further smaller sizes. Similarly, whenever I can think of chemical weathering, it includes processes like we have discussed when we discussed about the origin of sedimentary rocks. If you can remember, we discussed about the processes of oxidation and carbonation and other processes as well. So, these are because obviously this water that is coming down the hill will contain oxygen in it, will contain carbon dioxide in it. So, definitely it will help you to initiate or start the process of oxidation, sometimes carbonation, and sometimes some other process of hydrolysis as well. So, if I again start with the first type, that is the mechanical weathering, then it is nothing but the physical breakdown of rocks into smaller fragments without changing their chemical composition. Like I was referring to, that there will be only reduction in the particle size when they are getting abrated on the surface of one another. They will disintegrate into finer particles. Common chemical weathering processes include frost wedging, like we have again seen in our discussion in sedimentary rock, that how cycle of freeze and thaw might result into the breaking apart of larger, you can say larger boulders, even massive rocks. Apart from that, you can also get exfoliation, a kind of feature that is shown on the right hand side figure here, abrasion, and also thermal expansion, because every rock will respond to thermal expansion in its own way. It is not like that always the rocks will respond always in the same manner, but obviously there will be some expansion at times of, for example, during summer, and obviously followed by winter there will be a little bit contraction, and these processes are can be effective for when it is going or it is happening for a couple of thousands of years. Obviously you will not see any change if I just took a span of 1 year of one summer and one winter. It will not affect that very much. Means it will affect the rock, but it will be not very much appreciable when we are trying to analyze the effect. But if it goes on for a couple of thousands of years, definitely it will have an impact and resulting into the disintegration of the rock further. Again, there are some exceptional features like plant roots or trees roots that can also contribute to the mechanical disintegration of rocks like this. When the root tries to extend itself beneath the surface, then if there is a rock that is present adjacent to it or in very close proximity to it, then obviously that root will try to even fracture the rock, and taking some joint planes, or if already some earlier pre-existing fracture is there, then the roots will try to utilize those fractures and joints that are already present. Otherwise, sometimes massive rocks also gets broken up due to the propagation of these roots. Similarly, I was explaining about this thing that if there is a large scale granitic body and that was buried somehow, and over the process, long term process of erosion, it is now exposed, then what will happen? It will be directly exposed to, you can say, unloading. So due to the unloading of the stress that was earlier present by, you can say, a thickness or a thick pile of sediment that has now been eroded, which is not present now. So now there will be a little bit vertical upliftment, which means in response to this unloading of the stress that was earlier present on the top of the granitic dome or this kind of a body. So soon after that, what will happen? Due to this unloading, there will be a little bit gain in the surface area. So again, if I also think about the concept of our rock deformation, so if there is some extra surface area that is needed to release that stress, that is release the strain that has accumulated in that rock. So now you can simply disintegrate the rock or make cracks or fractures in the rock, and that will lead to the formation of exfoliation, and it is also referred to sometimes as your onion peel weathering of granitoid bodies. Simply like means you can peel the different layers of an onion. You can also peel in a large scale, obviously you can also take out different surfaces of a granitic body like this. So you can see this is this thing is mimicking the onion peel weathering effect. So coming into again the second type of weathering, that is chemical weathering, chemical alteration of rocks and minerals leading to formation of new minerals or dissolution of the existing ones. Examples of chemical weathering processes include hydration, oxidation, hydrolysis and carbonation, like I was mentioning, and rate of chemical reaction, because definitely if it is a chemical weathering process, there has to be some kind of reaction that is going on during the tenure of the chemical weathering. So the rate of this chemical reaction would depend on temperature, availability of water, and obviously the composition of the rock, because the composition of the rock has a direct relation on this type of weathering that is chemical in nature. So if I start with a rock that has composition, for example, A plus B, that might result into the formation of a new disintegrated material obviously, but with new mineralogy, that is for example C plus D. On the other hand, I can also start with A plus B, and there is a probability that all the constituents are not or getting changed or transformed into a new mineral. For example, if I think of formation of clay minerals, then it can form that silicate again, for example feldspar. If I am looking at a feldspar mineral, then during chemical weathering it might result into the formation of clay minerals. So I can say that obviously there is change in the minerals, or there is a change in the composition of that particular rock due to this chemical reaction. Similarly, it can also happen that some part of the mineral is being retained and some are transformed into a new one. So you will get a combination. For example, if I start with A plus B, I am getting, after this chemical weathering process, I am getting B plus C. Based on this idea, Golditch proposed, actually he did a series of experiments by taking these minerals, again those 9 rock forming minerals, 9 rock forming silicate and means ferromagnesium silicate minerals and non-ferromagnesium silicate minerals we discussed again and again earlier. So based on these 9 rock forming silicate minerals, Golditch did a series of experiment where he taken these minerals into solution, and then he took observation that how far a silicate mineral is getting into solution. So based on this, Golditch proposed this chemical stability or weatherability series. Actually, Golditch stability series, it is also referred to as Golditch weatherability series, and he proposed that out of all these 9 rock forming silicate minerals, your olivine and your calcium rich plagioclase, that means your anorthite, these are your least stable out of the all the 9 rock forming silicate minerals. So that means if there is a chemical weathering process going on, then the first 2 minerals that will get affected from this will be obviously olivine on one side, on the other side in the side of ferromagnesium silicate mineral, on the non-ferromagnesium side obviously anorthite will be affected first, resulting further with increase in stability or decrease in weatherability. You can say you have pyroxene, amphibole, biotite mica. Here you have from calcium to sodium rich plagioclase feldspar, followed by potassium feldspar, muscovite feldspar and quartz feldspar. So you see it is almost a kind of a inverse chart of your Bayes reaction series. So in Bayes reaction series, we start with the order of the crystallization from olivine on one side and anorthite on the other side to finally quartz to the bottom of the chart, or the bottom or the lowest temperature of crystallization. In the other in this Golditch stability series, what is happening, it is just the reverse. So the most stable one will be the mineral quartz, with having, with respect to our your Bayes reaction series, I can say quartz, which is having the lowest temperature of freezing or lowest temperature of crystallization, that is the most stable mineral in the Golditch weatherability series. On the other hand, the olivine and anorthite are the least stable minerals. So you can see there is also a relation between this Bayes reaction series and your Golditch stability series, which is exactly same as that of your Bayes reaction series, but just in a reverse order. So I can say that quartz is the most stable one, and your olivine and anorthite are the least stable one. In between there are you have pyroxene, amphiboles, biotite, potassium feldspar, that is orthoclase, and muscovite, that is also a mica. So this way the Golditch stability series have been framed. So based on this, you can have an idea that if a rock is subjected to chemical weathering, it depends on the composition of the rock that how far that rock will be weathered. If it is high in, for example, if you are looking at ultramafic rock containing lots of olivine in it, olivine and some pyroxene in it, for example, then in that case it will be subjected to more weathering in comparison to the to presence of a granite, which is rich in quartz, orthoclase feldspar, mica, sometimes some plagioclase feldspar as well. So you can see that that is also the reason where that why ultramafic rocks are relatively much rare in comparison to the presence of the large granitic bodies all across the globe. So wherever you go in search of an igneous rock, uh, in the continental area, obviously you will get granites because they have been subjected to weathering, but they have been least affected by the process of weathering. Whereas if you are going to an ultramafic complex, or where you will get some ultramafic rocks, there obviously you will see sporadic exposures, and obviously it is hard to find continuous rocks on the surface of the earth, means ultramafic rocks. Why? Again, because of the presence of minerals like olivine and pyroxene, which are obviously the least stable in the weatherability series. So they will be affected first whenever chemical weathering is going on. Next one is obviously the biological one. So weathering processes influenced by living organisms directly, such as plant roots growing into cracks and fissures, and burrowing animals disrupting rock structures. So your biological weathering, it is not only due to the propagation like we have seen in the physical or mechanical weathering, where your plant roots are propagating through some fractures or some fissures, some joints, and they are disintegrating the rock into 2 or 3 or more parts. But here what is happening, apart from that, plant roots, they are rich in nutrient. Obviously they draw nutrient from the soil or from the surface of the earth, and they also sometimes produce acids like organic acid, and they also contain different kinds of plant protein that are also referred to as enzymes, that will initiate or act as a catalyst to the this process of, you can say, chemical transformation in the rock. So what is going on? Obviously some chemical transformation is going on due to the presence of the enzymes or the catalysts. They are initiating the or helping in the initiation of a reaction, for example under the presence of carbonic acid, but it is actually due to the biological activity, or the biological, you can say biologically, the growth of the plant roots. So that's why it is considered under your biological weathering. Very specifically, I can also call it biochemical weathering, because your biological processes are combined or coupled with your chemical processes as well, leading to the disintegration of particles. Apart from that, some animals they burrow on the surface of the earth, for example ants, rats, and snakes and other species as well. So they burrow like this, and when they are forming a channel or you can say a network of these burrows, obviously there will be physical weathering, but again that is done by a living organism, so that is grouped under biological weathering. Coming into the major products of weathering, obviously if there is physical breakdown, the rocks are fragmented, there will be increase in the surface area of the rocks, facilitating further weathering. Chemical alteration leads to rocks undergo chemical reactions that result in the formation of new minerals or alteration of existing one. The common products of chemical weathering include clay minerals, oxide, hydroxides, and soluble salts. It also leads to the formation of soil, like I was mentioning at the beginning, that weathering contributes to the formation of soil, which consists of a mixture of mineral particles, organic matter, water, and air. Also, soil formation involves the weathering of rocks and accumulation of organic matter derived from plant and animal remains. It also leads to the formation of regolith, which is you can say the unconsolidated material that is just sitting on top of some consolidated or solid bedrock. So regolith refers to the layer of loose unconsolidated material that covers the bedrock. your weathering contributes to formation of regolith by rock breakdown into smaller particles that accumulate on the earth's surface. So again, importance of this weathering products are obviously it will increase the soil fertility. It can have a direct impact on the landscape evolution. We will be talking about the evolution of landscape with respect to river, wind and glacier in our consecutive lectures. It can also have an impact on the environmental processes because it play a crucial role in the geochemical cycling, water quality and the carbon cycle as well. Engineering and construction, that is obviously important for our life and livelihood. That knowledge of weathering product is essential for assessing the stability of rock and soil material in construction of large projects or any kind of infrastructural development. So finally, after the process of weathering, what will happen that there will be unconsolidated material. Obviously there will be consolidated bedrock at the base, above which your unconsolidated material will be deposited. So now you have a material that is usually termed as regolith. So these are mainly rock fragments, clay minerals, quartz and iron oxide that gets also apart from your different particles of different grain size, you have the clay minerals, quartz and iron oxide in it. So your regolith texture can vary from coarse to fine depending on size and composition of the particles, and thickness of the regolith layer can also vary depending on factors such as climate, obviously geology and the rates of erosion. And it definitely contains valuable resources and information on minerals, metals and obviously groundwater, because groundwater generally move through this kind of unconsolidated material. Coming into the next important process, that also you can say the further ahead is the erosion, that will now take the material that has been generated from the process or different processes of weathering will be now taken up by the process of erosion. So the process of erosion is the wearing away or displacement of the earth's surface material by natural processes such as water flow, wind, ice or gravity. It plays a significant role in shaping the landscape. We will be talking about landscapes in our consecutive lecture, and it can occur gradually as well as it can occur very rapidly depending on the different agents of erosion. So the rate of erosion depends on factors such as climate, topography and also the vegetative cover. So the process of erosion includes starting with the process of weathering, transportation and deposition. So obviously you are first disintegrating some material, then you are transporting it, finally you are depositing the same material somewhere. So you have a sequence of events that are related to this whole cycle, or you can say process of erosion, that you disintegrate material during weathering, you are transporting it from here to here and finally it is getting deposited at a place. So this whole process falls under the broad umbrella of erosion. There are several agents of erosion, starting with the first one, gravity. Obviously the earth's gravity play a very significant role. We will see in our next lecture that how gravity plays a very important role in a process called mass wasting, which is also possibly the unsung hero of this process of erosion. Gravity will drive mass wasting. Gravity causes the downflow movement of soil, rock and debris on steep slope, leading to the processes like landslide, rock falls and avalanches. Creep also is related to gravity. It refers to the slow movement of soil downhill due to the action of gravity simply over a short period of time. And you can say just one correction, that when slow movement of soil downhill due to the force of gravity is going on, it is actually a long process, not a short process. I mistakenly misread it. So then you have the agent of erosion, that is obviously water, streams and rivers that will contribute. Also rainfall will also contribute, and some coastal erosion can be also seen in coastal areas. So your intense rainfall can cause soil erosion by washing away uh, your surface material. You have rivers and streams. The flow of water in river and stream can definitely erode river banks and transport sediment downstream to very large distances. Waves. Coastal erosion is caused by force of waves wearing away shorelines and cliffs that are existing along the coast. Then you have the other agent, that is wind. So wind carries away loose soil particles, causing erosion in arid and semi-arid regions. Wind erosion is often, you can say, coupled with deforestation and poor land management practices. Glacial erosion obviously is happening or happens due to the movement of the glaciers. So glaciers or glacial erosion occurs when glacier move over the land, trapping and plucking rocks and soil along with it. There is also frost action that is associated with your glaciers. So the repeated freezing and thawing of water in cracks, obviously it will lead to the formation of ice. Also it is applicable to glaciers. There will be glacier melt sometime there will be movement of the glacier, you can say, in a kind of a solidus or solid state, because as a whole, if a glacier is moving, then definitely it has the ability to pluck rocks and soil in it. So this frost action as well as the movement of the glacial will contribute to the glacial erosion. We will be discussing about that in our consecutive lectures. When we are talking about the importance of mass wasting, or that means we are now plunging into our discussion on the individual agents of erosion, starting with the gravity. So under the action of gravity, the primary driving force behind mass wasting, we will see how gravity plays an important role. Obviously the angle of slope of the surface on which your mass wasting is taking place, presence of vegetation, and also presence of water in the soil just below the, means you can say, the upper cover. If there is some water, be it your groundwater, some other water that has percolated through the upper surface is present, then it will also have an impact. We will see how the processes of mass wasting are getting influenced by these factors. Types of mass wasting includes various kinds of processes: landslide, rock falls, creep, debris. We will be also looking into that in greater detail. Just to give you an idea of the triggering mechanisms, mass wasting can start due to heavy rainfall, earthquakes, volcanic activity, then human activities and freeze and thaw cycles. It will have a direct impact on the property. It means it can damage property, it can have an impact on loss of life, environmental damage, economic impact. It can be mitigated, not completely I will say, but partially it can be mitigated through better land use planning, vegetation management, and some obviously awareness program in the general public. So mass wasting can be grouped as, or can be referred to as, the unsung hero, or the among the other agents of your erosion, that is your water, wind and glacier, because that we can directly see over a short period of time. But mass wasting, it's generally it's a long lived process. It takes years, couple of years, sometimes decades to feel the or see the impact of mass wasting. But to analyze the impact of erosion through your wind, air, water, streams and glacier, they can be analyzed pretty fast, or they can be analyzed over a short period of time. But to analyze mass wasting, you need a long time span. So we will return back to our discussion on mass wasting in our next lecture. So here I would like to stop with the basic understanding of weathering and erosion. Thank you.